All right, let's talk about one of the most chaotic parts of being a React developer, state management. If you've ever felt totally overwhelmed by all the choices out there, don't worry, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're going to cut through that chaos and find some clarity. I mean, you've seen the names, right? Redux, ZooStand, Jotai, the built-in context API. It feels like a new library pops up every other week. It's totally normal to look at this list and just feel lost. Which one do you pick? Are you making the right choice? Well, that's exactly why we're here. Think of this as your map through the state management jungle. We're going to cut a path through all the noise, make sense of these tools, and help you figure out exactly which one is the right fit for your project. Okay, so before we even get into the solutions, let's take a step back. We have to really understand the core problem. Why is this so hard in the first place?
It all boils down to this one concept: application state. And look, that sounds like a super technical, scary term, but it's not. It's just the information that different parts of your app need to share. You know, stuff like, is the user logged in? What's in their shopping cart? Are they using dark mode? When lots of different components all need to know and change that same data, well, that's when things start to get tricky.
So let's start with the tool that React gives us right out of the box. At first glance, it seems like the perfect solution, but as we're about to see, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. And that tool is the Context API. Its main job is to solve a super annoying problem called prop drilling. That's when you have to pass a piece of data down through like 5 layers of components that don't even need it, just to get it to the one at the bottom that does. Context lets you just skip all that. You put your theme data or your auth status in a context, and any component can grab it. Simple, built in, what could possibly go wrong? Well, as it turns out, a lot. And this is a really critical point. Developer Vladimir Klepov puts it bluntly: thinking you can just use context for all your state management is dangerous thinking. He says if you're not super careful, it can absolutely tank your app's performance. So here's the killer. This is the big problem with context. When any value inside a context provider changes, every single component that uses that context re-renders. Let me say that again. Every single one. It doesn't matter if the component only cared about the username and the theme color changed. It re-renders anyway. It's like a building-wide fire alarm. It goes off and everyone has to react, even if the fire is in a totally different department. It creates so much wasted work for React. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. You can fight back against this. Based on Klepov's work, there are some clear rules to follow. First, break your contexts up. Don't have one giant app context. Have a theme context, an auth context, and so on. Second, you have to stabilize the values you pass in, usually with useMemo. And third, the components that actually use the context, keep them as tiny as possible. So yeah, you can make it work, but you have to be disciplined about it. It was exactly these kinds of performance headaches that led the community to search for a more robust solution. And that search gave us one of the most famous libraries in the history of JavaScript, Redux. Redux showed up and brought a ton of structure and predictability to this chaos. It was all based on 3 simple, powerful ideas. 1, all your app's state lives in one single place. 2, you can't just change the state directly. You have to send a message called an action saying you want to make a change. And 3, those changes are handled by pure functions called reducers. For big, complicated apps, this was an absolute game changer. But all that power came at a price. If you've ever used classic Redux, you know exactly what I'm talking about: the boilerplate. Oh, the boilerplate. You had to create actions, action creators, reducers, connect components. It felt like you were writing tons of code just to do one simple thing. And that reputation for being, well, a little clunky created a massive opening. A whole new wave of libraries emerged, promising to give you all the power of something like Redux, but with way, way less code. Which brings us to the main event for modern React. In one corner, you have Redux Toolkit, which is the official, modern way to use Redux. It slashed the boilerplate and made everything way easier. And in the other corner, you have a challenger like ZooStand. It's a totally different approach. It's based on simple hooks, it's incredibly minimal, and it's all about flexibility. Okay, talk is cheap. Let's just look at the code. Here is a simple counter in Redux Toolkit. You see this create slice function? It's pretty cool. It lets you define your state, your reducers, and it automatically generates the actions for you. It's structured, it's clear, it's pretty good. Now, take a breath and look at the exact same counter built with ZooStand. That's it. That's the whole thing. The state and the functions that change the state all live together in one simple custom hook. There are no actions, no reducers, no slices. It's just a function. The difference in the amount of code you have to write is just staggering.
So, okay, we have all these fantastic options. How in the world are you supposed to choose the right one? Let's move past just looking at code and get practical with some hard data.
First up, bundle size. How much extra code are you shipping to your users? Well, context is built in, so it's free, 0 kilobytes. But look at this comparison. Zooston is absolutely tiny, coming in around 4 kilobytes. Redux Toolkit, with all its power and features, is quite a bit bigger at around 15 kilobytes. If you're building something where every kilobyte counts, that's a huge difference. And what about raw speed? This is fascinating. In benchmarks that hammer the state with frequent updates, Zooston is the clear winner. It's nearly twice as fast as Redux Toolkit and way faster than context. And the reason is that it's designed from the ground up to let components subscribe to tiny, specific pieces of state. So if only one little thing changes, only the components that care about that one little thing will re-render. It's incredibly efficient.
All right, let's bring this all home. Here's a practical cheat sheet. If you're building a simple site and just need to share a theme or auth status, you know what? Context is probably fine if you're careful. For most modern web apps and SaaS products, Zooston hits this incredible sweet spot. It's simple, it's powerful, it's fast. It's a fantastic default choice. If you're dealing with really complex forms with lots of interdependent state, you might want to look at something like Jotai, which has an atomic model that's perfect for that. And finally, if you're on a massive enterprise app with a huge team, Redux Toolkit's strict structure and incredible developer tools are still king.
But you know how this goes. Just when we think we've got the landscape figured out, the ground starts to shift again. There's a new idea on the horizon that could change everything. 67%. What is that? Well, according to some amazing research, that is the reduction in dropped frames in UI jank that was achieved by using a new reactive paradigm called signals. A 67% improvement. That's not just a small step, that's a giant leap. So what even are signals? The simplest way to think about them is as the next evolution of reactivity. Instead of telling a whole React component, hey, you need to re-render, a signal can go in and update just the tiny piece of the web page that changed. It bypasses the whole virtual DOM diffing process. It's like using a laser-guided scalpel instead of a sledgehammer. It is surgically precise. Which brings us to our final big question. With this insane performance, and as they get adopted by more and more frameworks, could signals be the thing that finally ends the state management wars? Or are they just the next exciting chapter in a story that, let's be honest, is probably never going to end? That's something for all of us to watch.